Daniel Carter sat alone in a dimly lit diner, stirring his coffee absent-mindedly. The weight of the past few months pressed heavily on his shoulders, bills piling up, his small business struggling, and an overwhelming sense of loneliness since his wife had left. He barely noticed the frail old woman who shuffled in, wrapped in a tattered shawl, her hands trembling as she counted the coins in her purse. The waitress, a young girl with tired eyes, leaned in and spoke softly to the woman. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but you're a little short." The woman hesitated, her wrinkled fingers gripping the coins tightly, as if hoping they would multiply. Daniel watched as she sighed and started pushing the plate of food away, resignation written all over her face. Without thinking, he waved at the waitress. "Put it on my tab." The old woman's cloudy eyes widened. "Oh, no, son, I couldn't, it's nothing," Daniel interrupted with a small smile. "Please, enjoy your meal." Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at him, as if she wanted to say something more. But instead, she simply clasped his hands in hers, whispered a soft "thank you," and ate in silence. Daniel left before she finished, thinking little of it. It was just a meal. Just a small act of kindness. But the next morning, everything changed. Daniel was awakened by a knock at his door. It was early, too early for visitors. Groggy and confused, he shuffled to the door and pulled it open. His breath hitched. There, on his doorstep, sat an envelope. Beside it, a small wooden box, beautifully carved with delicate patterns. No one was in sight. The air was still, the street eerily quiet. Frowning, he bent down and picked up the envelope first. It was addressed to him, but there was no name on the back. Heart-pounding, he tore it open. "Dear Daniel, kindness is a rare and precious thing in this world. You gave it freely, expecting nothing in return. But sometimes, the universe has a way of repaying even the smallest gestures in ways you could never imagine. Open the box. And remember, what you give comes back to you tenfold." The handwriting was elegant, yet unfamiliar. Daniel swallowed hard and turned to the box. Carefully, he lifted the lid. Inside, nestled on a bed of velvet, was an old pocket watch. But not just any watch, it was intricate, gold, and oddly familiar. He ran his fingers over its surface, and then, realization struck him like a bolt of lightning. This was his father's watch. The one that had been stolen nearly 15 years ago during a break-in. The one his father had cherished, a family heirloom passed down through generations. His hands trembled as he picked it up, pressing the small button on the side. The watch clicked open, revealing an engraving inside. "Time is precious. Use it well." Tears burned at the corners of his eyes. How was this possible? His father had always told him that watch was a symbol of good fortune, that it had brought their family prosperity for decades. Until it was taken from them. Daniel's heart pounded. He looked around, hoping to spot someone who could explain this miracle. But there was no one. Just the quiet hum of the morning air. Shaken, Daniel sat on the steps, staring at the watch in his palm. Who had left it there? How had they found it? And why now? Then, a thought struck him. The old woman. Could it have been her? He rushed back to the diner, pushing through the doors, his eyes scanning the booths. But she wasn't there. "Hey," he called to the waitress from the night before. "The woman from yesterday, do you know her? Do you know where she lives?" The waitress frowned, shaking her head. "She's not from around here. Never seen her before." "Why?" Daniel hesitated, his mind racing. It didn't make sense. If she wasn't a regular, how had she found him? How did she know about the watch? He glanced down at the pocket watch in his hand. The morning sunlight glinted off the gold surface, almost as if it were winking at him. A message from the past. A reminder that even the smallest acts of kindness had the power to rewrite destinies. That night, Daniel sat at his desk, staring at the watch. His father's voice echoed in his mind, "Time is precious. Use it well." Maybe it was time to stop drowning in his own struggles. Maybe it was time to start again. Over the next few weeks, Daniel began making changes. He started helping out at local shelters, offering meals to those in need. He stopped dwelling on his losses and instead focused on what he could give. Slowly, his business picked up. Customers returned, word spread, and new opportunities emerged. And every morning, he'd glance at the watch, knowing that someone out there, perhaps an angel in disguise, had reminded him of something he'd long forgotten. That kindness, no matter how small, had the power to change lives. Including his own.